Real estate has long been considered a safe long-term investment option for Indians over generations. A boom in the market for most part of the last 2 decades has seen real estate prices zoom and bring windfall gains for some investors. But over the last few years, there has been a marked slowdown. GST, demonetization and RERA have possibly contributed to this. So is real estate still the safe bet it used to be? Should people still be looking at real estate as an investment option in a market where prices are stagnating, taxes are high and rental income meager? To understand more on this, I'm joined now by Boman Irani. He is Vice President of CREDAI and Chairman and Managing Director of Rustomjee Group. Anuj Puri, Chairman of Anarock Property Consultants, is also weighing in with his view. So we've got the top guys in the real estate market to give you their point of view on what's happening in the business. I'll start with Anuj. Anuj, is it all looking pretty dismal? Because people are used to seeing their investments in real estate pay back in a fairly short time of 3 to 5 years. Either the price of the property increases or the rental incomes are good. But there is more and more anecdotal evidence out there of people kind of feeling stuck with their investments.
So it is very true, Tamanna. What you're saying is clearly we're seeing that from an investment perspective, as far as residential is concerned, the investors are finding it very stifling. On the office side, though, they have done exceptionally well, whether there's an institutional investor, family offices, or high net worth individuals who bought offices, and today they're really doing very well because the cycle of offices have come back. However, the cycle for the residential is going to take a little bit more time, and clearly we're seeing that this is not at this stage an investor market. It is an end user market, and when we cover that point, I'll have my thoughts on it. But you're absolutely right in your opening statement that the investors have got stuck with unsold inventory that they had purchased in bulk, particularly in north of India, and they are finding it today difficult to be able to not only exit that inventory at the principal which they had bought, but perhaps at a discount, and over and above that, if they were to really look at renting it, the yields are no more than 2%. Whenever investors are looking at options, they would obviously compare where they're putting their money in real estate as compared to, say, gold or fixed deposits, equity, mutual funds. Real estate doesn't seem to be performing on most parameters. Mr. Irani, so far people were overlooking that fact in terms of rental income because they were hoping prices would go up. Do you think that prices have hit their peak for some time now, and now we're seeing a slide back as the data suggests? Increase in prices has been meager even in top markets like Mumbai.
If I was to hear only your questions, I would definitely feel so, Damana, but that's really not the case. See, good developments have always managed to kind of command a little bit of a interest that would allow them to continue to be prized or sought after assets. Now, when you talk of investors, just to tell you, the type of investors have themselves changed. Earlier, you had these retail investors who used to come and buy a couple of apartments or get together and buy a building. Now, those kind of investors, well, I can talk of the Mumbai market as such, had a great run for some time when there was a huge boom in the construction industry. Those kind of investors are definitely not around, but even today, high net worth individuals and families are looking at good developments to put their money to work. And Anuj just mentioned about the office market getting a spurt. So basically that's an indicator that jobs are getting created today. Even the BKC area is like, the office market is totally well occupied, and that should give you an indicator that homes are going to start selling at a better price. Let me also point out to you that costs have actually gone up, and you're right, with GST around, the costs have gone up. The government premiums, especially in the Mumbai market, have taken the costs higher. What this will do is, Tamana, sooner or later, you're going to have, if you are able to kind of lock in an investment at the initial stages, a developer and the market, to make up for the higher costs, is going to increase the rates. You also mentioned something about demonetization and RERA. Let me tell you, RERA is actually an enabler. RERA has allowed people, even the smaller investors who were worried about, whether they'd get what they were aiming for, are looking at developments with a little more keenness, because they are now certain that they will get what it is that has been offered to them at the initial stage in a particular time. Else there is always a regulatory authority where they can go to and get their money's worth.
If I may just come in with RERA, if I may just come in with RERA, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I want to just expand on that for a bit. RERA is still a promise. Do you think that people will really start having faith once they see some implementation of it? It has been diluted in some markets. No one really so far has been brought to book for inordinate delays. It's a promise that things will get better, but no one really knows for sure right now. Is it, Mr. Irani? No. I mean, as far as the Mumbai market is and the RERA authority out here, I can tell you there's a lot more happening out here than you maybe, you might want to look it up and see. So a lot of developers have been asked to put up, payments in terms of interest or penalties to consumers who have not been given their apartments in time, or the promise is not complete. See, if it is everybody's view that RERA should only penalize or rather flog a developer, I don't think that is the intent. The intent is to put together a regulatory body that would allow a consumer to get what he had bargained for, what he really wanted. And towards that, I can tell you this about Maha-RERA: they've been doing a phenomenal task. Some of the things that they have done have allowed them to go and endear themselves to the consumers, and the consumers are super happy with the way the judgments are coming, especially for errant developers. Sometimes these judgments also stretch themselves, and I would say some of the other developers also get involved in it, but that's fine. It's it's an authority that's doing its job very well. They are pushing for the consumer, and in time to come, I see it as a positive, because the good developers will start getting recognized for what it is that they were doing for years, and maybe get a premium too. So Maha-RERA has been doing a great task. I'm not sure about the rest of the country. Maybe Anuj could throw some more light on that. Before we come back to the other factors that have rocked the business in the last couple of years, let's get Anuj's view on RERA. Clearly, it's great in theory, a good idea, but what has it really done to the real estate business, which is populated by all kinds of developers, not just premium players?
So, Tamanna, I'll continue from where Boman left. One is that Maha-RERA is fantastic, but that doesn't mean the rest of the country has got fantastic policies that they've implemented or guidelines on RERA. There has been dilution. You mentioned it. You can also see in many of the states where they have actually diluted RERA. The second I would say is, the consumer is just about to understand. They're just learning what this RERA is. So I think you'll have to give it a little bit more time for it to be implemented, for the consumer to really be able to understand that what is the repercussion of a developer not really looking at the RERA. And the third I would say is, if there is an unscrupulous developer, yes, you will be fined. There could be criminal charges that the authorities will do. But I still say is that the buyer has to beware. It cannot be that RERA has come and suddenly the buyer says, look, all my responsibilities are now left to the regulator to be able to take it out. Yes, the regulator will fine the developer, but ultimately I still think is that the buyer needs to be aware and says, these are the good developers, as Boman said is, and I'm happy to pay a little bit more premium to these developers, versus that these developers who may go to jail or may be fined, but ultimately, I want my house. I am not interested in them going to jail or, them getting fined. Yeah. So I still think is that, this is a little bit of misnomer that RERA is going to provide everybody semblance.
I get your point, but I don't know practically to what extent each and every buyer will be able to check the antecedents of someone who's in the market. You assume if someone's in the market with, something to sell, that they have been verified by the powers that be. But anyway, let's come back to what real estate offers for investors at this point, and whether it's a good idea or not, because that's where we started from. That's what our viewers probably want to know. What is the kind of time horizon, possible potential investors are looking at if they decide to invest in real estate today, and what kind of returns are they looking at? Let Anuj field that first.
Yeah, so Tamanna, I'll give you 3 data points. One is that for 7 consecutive quarters, the sales have been ahead of the launches. That means there have been every quarter more new homes that have been sold than those have been launched. The second is, as a result of which, your unsold inventories start sharply starting to come down, because every quarter there is more sale than the new launches, and hence the unsold inventory that had got built up over the last few years have each quarter started to really come down. And the third is that we are now getting into these launches. So the last quarter that has gone, June ending, it was the second lowest quarter on the launches. So clearly we're not seeing that there is a huge amount of supply that is going to come up. And I feel is that this is really at the bottom that you have now started to come. You asked Boman this question, is it at the bottom? I feel is that the prices have really hit the rock bottom at this moment in time. The developers are not willing to come out with new supply because they're seeing that these prices are not going to be affordable given their cost. So clearly over the next 18 months, I see that you're going to see a price rise that will start to happen. So for an investor to come in today, I do feel is that they will be able to see in the next 18 months a consolidation in the industry and hopefully a price appreciation.
Would you agree with that, Mr. Irani, that the bottom has been hit? Because then what about all of that large unsold stock lying across top cities like Pune and Mumbai?
It's really interesting, every time media speaks about unsold inventory, I try to tell them only one thing. Let's float an ad in the paper that says, I want, let's say 100 apartments in one particular area where you believe that there is, good quality products available. Let us see if we get those 100 apartments at one go. The answer is largely no, unless it's a new development starting in the area. Secondly, the buyer, the home buyer today,
are you saying unsold inventory is not an issue for the industry? Are you saying it's not an issue for the industry, that everyone's
let's put it this way. Again. There are markets, there are micro markets that may be in an oversupply position, but it is not universal. It is not across the globe. It is not everywhere. So even today, if you look at certain parts of Mumbai, and like I mentioned, I'll restrict myself to the Mumbai and MMR region. Even today in Mumbai, what we are seeing is that there's a great amount of demand coming up for good projects, and with good brands that are being, that are getting into, let's say, various arrangements like a DM, etc. They're being able to launch projects and show promising sales in their launches itself. And the consumer has become increasingly well facilitated with, let's say, the financing schemes that are available across, where the developer ties everything up. There is an entire hand-holding in the process of the acquisition. So the troubles that used to be there earlier for being able to find an apartment, someone like Anuj's company would take them through the entire hand-holding process and actually guide them as to what really needs to be done, has made the process simpler and a little more interesting. Thirdly, what I wanted to tell you was that there's a great amount of interest in that material which is ready or nearly ready for possession. Having said all of this, I again want to say what I said earlier. GST has been a big dampener on the Mumbai and MMR market, because 12% seems irrationally high, especially in our markets in Mumbai, and we've been constantly reaching out for that particular thing.
What about demonetization? Very quickly, Mr. Irani, is the real estate sector now willing to live with the 100% white reality, or close to that it may seem to? Are you guys over demonetization finally?
I've said this so many times before. It's not like real estate was the harbinger of all the black money, etc. And while it was a huge shock and the entire country went into a shock during demonetization, the Mumbai and MMR markets have largely worked on bank funding and bank financing for their consumers. And if there was any kind of a grey market, it was in the secondary markets where people who had bought earlier were trying to resell and working through known people, etc., etc. In our industry, I can tell you, largely we are absolutely above board. We run larger organizations. It's impossible for us to kind of try and keep a tab on any kind of dealing. So
sure. Okay, then let me ask you one last very quick question. What do you see happening with rates, Mr. Irani? Do you see rates going up again, and in how much time?
Like Anuj mentioned, and then I kind of added to it, costs are actually going up. You will see a rise in the rates, and this market is, especially the Mumbai market, is going to be skewed right now because we've been talking of the promise of DCR 2034. There are no new launches taking place, and there's going to be a squeeze in the supply. The moment that squeeze in the supply comes and the demand being where it is, you're going to see a spike by opportunistic developers and even those that are holding certain amount of stocks in terms of the financial institutions, etc. Okay. And you will see them making a good amount of money in that time.
All right. So optimism there from Credai as well as Anarock that things will only get better. But I think one message coming clear that all investors have to be very discerning about where they're putting in their money. Thank you so much, Boman Irani and Anuj Puri, for speaking with us.
Like investors should, yes.